back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be talking about Ghostbusters 2016. So let's get into that. Now, this is my first viewing on the remake, the 2016 Ghostbusters remake, where they basically gender swap the entire casting and do a retelling of the original story with its own little flavor and twists in there that make it merit a remake and not go extremely beat for beat, but it's still essentially the same story. Now, like I said, this is my first time ever watching this movie, and this was one of the most controversial movies of 2016 for many reasons. You know, a lot of people didn't like the fact of the gender swap. There was casting that said basically if you don't like this movie, you're a woman hater and all this kind of things, and a bunch of stuff that was going on during that time that made this movie so controversial. I wasn't a part of that because I've never seen the movie. I wasn't part of the conversation, and seeing it now, almost 8 years later, seeing it for the first time with fresh eyes without having all that controversial commentary going on in the background, this was a pretty enjoyable watch. I'm not gonna lie. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the pros for me. And one of my biggest pros, I think it has to be Leslie Jones. I think Leslie Jones is, out of all four girls that are casted here, they're all pretty big comedians, but Leslie Jones for me was the standout in terms of comedy. I think she actually brought a pretty strong comedic relief to a lot of the situations that are going on here. And then as well as Chris Hemsworth, where a lot of people might be upset that they made Chris Hemsworth a fucking idiot and just extremely stupid, has no idea what's going on, just is just a straight dumbass, right? Some people might get offended by that. Some men might get offended by that. However, I thought it was pretty freaking hilarious. That Chris Hemsworth probably was the majority of my main laughs. Everything else could have hit or miss. Like I said, Leslie Jones was pretty strong in comedy, and then Chris Hemsworth was the focal point in terms of the comedy. So I did really enjoy some of the comedy aspects throughout the entire movie. I also really enjoyed all the special effects, since of course this is, almost 20, 30 years newer than the previous two movies. The special effects are a lot better, even when it comes to just the ghosts, the proton pack beam, like just all that stuff just looks visually more pleasing. It doesn't seem like very harsh CGI like what it used to look like back in the day. And so it is nice to see all these special effects kind of come to life years later, and it makes the movie pretty damn awesome. And then with the special effects also being a little bit more better this time around, they're able to do a lot of other cool, unique things in terms of like the technology that the Ghostbusters have. Like they have their little sidearms, the little like grenade with the proton beams, their little side pistol proton beam packs and everything like that. So that was pretty enjoyable to see too during the final battle when they're using their main proton packs and then having to switch to like their little grenades and having like this little shredder thing. Like all those different weapons that they had were pretty cool to see. And then I also liked how their technology kind of advanced, where in the original movie they tested it once, it works, let's make four of them for the rest of them. Where this one they had a much bigger one that they had to roll around, and then they were able to compact it a little bit more, and they were compact it a little bit better, make a better actual gun holding mechanism itself. And seeing the technology progress was actually kind of neat, and I think it works better that way, where they're progressively getting better as Ghostbusters. And lastly, I also really enjoyed that the final boss was very reminiscent of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. You do see him in this movie as a big giant balloon, but the final boss is the actual logo of the Ghostbusters. And I thought that was actually a very neat concept and was a pretty cool final boss. Now let's go ahead and get into the cons for me. And like I said, there is a pretty good chunk of comedy that I liked in this film, but I would say maybe 70 to 75% of the comedy didn't really land. There was, like I said, that 30 to 25%, I actually got a pretty good chuckle, a pretty good laugh out of it. Not even just a chuckle, a pretty good laugh out of it. But most of the comedy didn't really land, and it made it feel a little weird. I think the biggest problem with this film is the tone that it's trying to go for. There is so many aspects of it that it feels like it wants to go for a serious tone, and then it just throws all that seriousness out the way with some sort of comedic relief that isn't funny at all. It just breaks away from what's actually happening on screen. And I think that's the problem, because with something like the first two Ghostbusters, where yeah, it's a pretty wacky concept. You know, the Ghostbusters. It's, you know, a movie that anybody can watch. It's not supposed to be a horror movie or anything like that, but they take themselves seriously first, and then the comedy comes with it. Where I think this one they're trying to do comedy first and then implement serious parts, and I don't think that works in terms of the tone that they're trying to achieve here. You know, it just doesn't fully flow in that way. And I also don't really like that this movie breaks away from the original storyline. I really wish that the original storyline was still implemented into this and they passed on the Ghostbusters legacy to these females. I think that would have been a much, much better approach to this movie versus what they have here, where our main characters are just little cameos. You know, you have one of them is a cab driver, one of them is literally just a busk at a college, and then you have one that's a ghosty bunker, and then one of them is the uncle of Leslie Jones' character at the end. He only shows up for 2 minutes. So I wish there was just more implementation of the original casting and the original story, and I feel like that would have flowed a lot better, and I think it would have worked a lot more with Ghostbusters fans as well, that they didn't just completely scrap the original storyline. So that's kind of a little bit of a gripe where I think this movie could have done a lot better if they would have done something like that instead of just throwing that out the window. And that's kind of why this movie probably didn't really work. You know, it kind of throws away the legacy of the Ghostbusters, and that's why something like Afterlife and Frozen Empire that we're getting pretty soon, that is continuing the original storyline, works a lot better. You know, a lot of people may say this movie didn't work because people were being women haters and they didn't like the women casting. I thought they all did actually pretty fine. This movie is pretty fun to watch. It's not a movie where you throw on and you're like, yeah, I'm never seeing this movie again. I can see myself watching this movie again because there was a lot of aspects of it that were actually genuinely enjoyable. There was just things that it doesn't make sense to have this movie. If it was more implemented to the main storyline, this movie would make a lot more sense, and that's its biggest downfall in my opinion. But overall, I do enjoy the film. It's not the best one; it doesn't feel as classic as the original ones, of course, but it's a movie that I can still appreciate. And with throwing all the controversy out the window and just viewing it as a film, as a movie to have a good time, it does its job. And I actually genuinely enjoy it. With that being said, let me know what you guys think about the 2016 Ghostbusters remake. Do you guys enjoy the movie, or are you guys kind of one of those that don't really like all the controversy around this film and just don't really enjoy this one that much? Let me know. I'd love to hear all your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. And again, if you like talking about anything movies, TV shows, or video game related, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Look forward for my Afterlife review and my Frozen Empire review when that comes out, and then I'll have my full Ghostbusters ranking here pretty soon. And I'll see you guys on the next review. Thank you.